Hi, welcome to Kay's Tiny House, where I am building my very own tiny house and I am documenting that journey. And what have I done since the last update? So, last time I showed the hinges that I got for the corner cabinet door so that they would be able to open wide because it's such a small, weird area. And we learned that I had to take divots out of the door itself so that it could hinge around the face frame. And that actually worked out really well. Super happy with how that went. Okay, open. Look at that. All right, and close. Look at that. What do you think, Phil? Now
Thumbs
you're
up.
stuck there forever.
That's right. Oh no. So, open and open.
Nice. Then I worked on the stairs. So I had already built the drawers and installed those, and I had cut the maple stair treads to size, but I wanted to stain them and protect them from wear and tear. And I learned that maple is the hardest wood to stain. So I bought one stain. I think it was called like hazelwood. I hated it. It made it look gray and dirty. So I was like, okay, I sanded that. And then I got a different stain that was more like natural looking. Hated it because all it did was highlight the imperfections in a way that just made it look dirty. Didn't look cool. It didn't look nice. It just looked like someone had walked all over it with big boots. So I needed a break from that. And I had tried using a hand sander to do that. It was going to take forever. So then Doug was like, well, let's use the belt sander. And that was a much better idea. We were able to cut off all that ugly stain away. And then I was like, cool, I'm just going to add a clear layer of polyurethane because they look fine raw. Like they look good. But boy, was that difficult. To attach the stairs to the frame, Doug had an old kit of, I don't even know what you call them. They're like little, you make little plugs. So when you screw into the stairs, but you still want it to look pretty, you can make these plugs to then put that in the hole at top of the screw so that it looks nice and neat. So I got to use that, which was really cool. It was really easy. I had a drill press, so I was able to just create a bunch of them in one go. And then they just popped out with like a screwdriver. And then once we put them in, we attached it, which was tricky because the plywood on the side of the frame for the stairs is 3/4 inches. And so a few of the screws that we screwed in kind of split the plywood a little bit, but I'll just glue and patch that up so you can't really tell. But luckily we avoided that for most of the screws. And then I added a little bit of wood glue around the peg, hammered it in lightly, and then afterwards had to saw off the part that's poking out, and then I sanded those down so that they're all straight. And then I added a layer of clear polyurethane to protect it, and I still want to do a couple more layers of that, but no more stain for maple. Now I know. Other than painting the drawers of the stairs, I've already added like a layer of primer to them so they're ready to be painted, and they'll just be the same white as the walls. So yay, stairs done. I also checked and made sure Taco could go up and down them just fine, and that worked out really well. So yay. I then made another trip to find lumber and plywood, and I needed to buy a lot of Canadian pine because most of the things left in the house is trim and making things look nice. So I needed it for the face frame for the closet upstairs in the loft. I needed it to wrap the open beams that hold up the roof. I'll need it for window trim baseboards, covering up the wheel wells, other trim areas around certain walls and corners. So gonna need a lot of it, bought a lot of it. And that was hopefully the last time I'll need to go there. Not hopefully. I'm glad. I love that store. It's really fun, but hopefully that's the last big purchase that I'll need to do there. So after that, I decided to focus on trimming out the windows. Before, I had to use spray foam to fill in the gap in between the window and the framing, and that was probably my least favorite part of the whole project. So the first one I got, it was just like your basic $4 can of spray foam, but the shooter straw was so thick and the area that I needed to fill foam was so thin, it just became a hot mess. And so I bought another can that had like a tapered edge that was like specifically to go into like really small spaces, and that worked much better. Today is June 23rd, and today we are going to be working on some window trim. I have made it to the site after a long day of work, so my brain is very tired, so I'm hoping that this is easy, just go with the flow type work. We'll see. I'm going to work on this window today in the kitchen, and it's right under the mini split, so hopefully it'll be not the worst thing ever. I had some interesting experience with spray foam. I was trying to clean it up before it firmed, and that was silly, that was dumb. And I also had a different hose, so it was really hard to fit into like the thinner cracks. So I got a thinner hose thing, and that worked much better. So now this is firmed up, so I should be able to easily cut that away and then install the trim. I just did a very basic, I cut the Canadian pine to like 2.5 inches wide because that was the depth within the opening. That made things easier, and I felt like 2.5 inches looked good just to scale with everything else. And I didn't want to add a larger sill just because a lot of the areas where the windows are, having something stick out would be hazardous, if you will. So I just did a very simple trim. I watched some videos, and Doug wanted to do like a whole create the box and then just like put it in, which I think would have looked really good and would have done well, but I wasn't confident enough to do that on my own. So I just did the old measure and cut as you go method. Some things I learned was that, you wanted to do like a 1/8 recess when you're overlapping the front trim after you like box it in, just so you can kind of hide imperfections and have room to caulk and make things pretty. So I haven't caulked anything yet, but luckily it was a very straightforward thing. I did learn that stripping 12-foot boards of pine by yourself is very difficult. So I had to use, Doug has like a roller thing that I could set it on and kind of guide through to help with that. It was really hard to keep it perfectly straight. After I cut like the longer pieces I needed, I then cut it down, the whole board, to a shorter size, which was like 75, 77 inches. And then from there, it was much easier to strip the wood into 2.5 slices. Though I still needed that roller thing. That was clutch. So that was good. And then to attach the frame, I just used a staple gun with like a 1.25 inch staples. Trying to get it into the studs when it was like on the sides, but yeah, I think it looked really nice. It already makes a huge difference to like the feel of the house. Feels more finished. There's none of that 2x4 exposed in the windows. I will prime and paint those as well after I caulk all of the crevices of those. I also started the closet that's upstairs. So this will house the washing machine and dryer, my clothes, and like a utility closet on the other side where the water heater will be. And then it's going to have like 4 sliding doors. So the door situation I bought from IKEA. And for the actual like framing of the door, because the roof gables just a little bit, we had to build a beam to create like a level for the top rail of the door to attach to. And so that was kind of tricky, was figuring out how to cut that piece to the angle it needed. But Doug found out a way because he thinks like that. And it worked out really well. And we basically put 2, I think they were 2x10s together to create a thick enough beam. And then we attach those together and then pocket hold them into the ceiling so that it would stay there. The most difficult part of that was that it was so long because it spanned the width of the whole room. So it was like 112 inches long. But once we got that in, it was solid. It was good. Then we built a frame. So it's just a 2-inch face frame, very similar to the cabinets. And Doug put that together while I was working on the stairs. And we just used pocket screws to attach those together. And we created like an L on the edges so those can go into the wall. And then on the 2 in between, the 2 rails in between, we added little feet to them so that we could screw those into the floor. And then what we're going to do next is cut plywood to act as like the walls for each section, and those will get screwed into the wall and maybe the floor. I don't really know, but that'll be that. Yeah, and so after that, that will wrap up the wardrobe closet area. I will install the doors, which they'll need to be cut down to size. So that'll be fun. And then I recently cleaned up the tiny house. I had gathered a lot of stuff and dirt and rags and the spray foam that I had cut off. It was just all over the floor, making it a very chaotic workspace. So I did a lot of cleaning to make that easier. So hopefully it feels nicer the next time I go. Other than that, thank you so much for watching. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel to hear more updates, and I will let y'all know how things progress.